Hi, I'm John Alderete from the band Racer X, and welcome to my Backstage Pass video. Today we're going to talk about some history about myself, mainly so you can get an idea of what I went through, so you can compare it to what you're doing, and you won't get lost in the process of doing things that I did as a mistake, and it'll prevent you from doing the same thing. And another thing I'll be talking about is technique and the reason why I think it's important and ways to help develop your technique. And I think I'm also going to cover modal ideas, being that way you can apply it to music as well and being able to get a better general understanding of music. But first, let's take some history about myself. I started playing when I was 16 and just learn stuff off albums. I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing that. Just sitting down with an album, trying to learn things, it's like picking up Jaco Pastorius solos or John Entwistle solos for that matter, and all's good. It's the best form of learning that I can recommend to anybody. Some of the best musicians, that's all they relied on, which, from Eric Clapton to Eddie Van Halen, or bass players, I'm not really sure who, but I know guitar players did it, and I did it myself. And then just seeing how the bass functions in the band and being able to get familiarized more with your instrument by just you playing every day. The funny thing about me is immediately I wanted to get into the technique aspect of my playing. I didn't want to sound sloppy because I just felt that in order for me to get my musical idea across to you people, my audience, I had to play clean and with conviction. If there's a bunch of noise going on, you won't understand what I'm playing and everything's lost. I want to be able to get my musical idea across to you, which is being able to do everything I want musically, perfectly clean and punchy and with conviction. So that was the main reason why I started working out on my technique. And after that, after I started getting bored with what I was doing, I decided to go into lessons with a private teacher. His name was Steve Evans. He was a great all-around player, and he opened up my eyes to a lot of things that I didn't know, mainly like notes on the neck. I didn't know this was G, I didn't know this was A. I knew this was E, and I knew that was A from the open strings, but that was all I knew, and he helped me with that. He taught me the basic scales, which like major, minor, blues scale, pentatonic scales. Nothing more than that, and I wasn't really sure how to apply them. I just had to listen to chord tones or whatever and try to see if I could fit them in. And I had some good bass lines and some amateur lines. That's what happens when you really don't know how to apply what you know. And then he introduced me to modes, which, boom, that really did me in. I really started getting my playing happening when I learned what modes were. I started understanding how to visualize my neck, and I also started thinking more in diatonic terms, being all things pertaining to a major scale. And modes being major scales starting at different degrees or starting points. So after learning that, my playing advanced rapidly. I started getting more calls. People wanted me to play in their band because I started knowing what I was doing. I wasn't some chump just, playing along and trying to wing my way through the gig or whatever. I enrolled in college next because my parents wanted me to go to college and not lie around the house and practice all day, so I figured I could learn stuff at school musically and satisfy what my parents wanted. And it was great because I was kind of intimidated at first. I thought it was going to be all real bonehead music theory, but it was really good music theory, learning key signatures, how to sight read, learning to hear chords and melodies and chord progressions, and I just started getting more musical out of the whole process. And another good thing was that it was really cheap for me to do this. Those junior colleges don't require that much money, and it really prepared me for going to another music school that I had planned to go to, because college is really classical oriented most of the time, and I wanted to get contemporary. I wanted to apply what I knew to contemporary music. So that's when I enrolled in BIT. I started playing in bands, and noticed that I wasn't still getting enough gigs, so that was another reason why I started to go to BIT. And there I started to learn how to play over chord progressions, how to play over jazz style progressions, learning what chord substitutions were. It was really contemporary music. And I started getting more comfortable with my playing and being able to communicate with other musicians, because I didn't really have that before. And BIT was really great for that. And I really was starting to get so advanced. I felt advanced in my playing that I needed to progress into a new style of music, because I felt I knew enough to play rock, and which what I always wanted to do, but I felt I needed to progress my theory more, so that's why I started to study more jazz ideas at BIT. And it really helped me in all other aspects of music, because they teach you other styles. They want you to get more involved and more developed in other styles to make you a well-rounded player. And that's always going to help you in whatever kind of music you do play, because you can whip out anything. You can, if you're a rock player, maybe you can whip out your thumbing, or maybe you can whip out some jazz chops. Whatever it is, it'll help you in your own style of playing. Another thing that I had learned at BIT was how to sight read. I knew somewhat how to sight read from college, but I really didn't know very well on my bass, and I couldn't really read that well. So I started studying with Putter Smith, who teaches at BIT, and he has this fantastic system on how to read, and it developed my reading so much that I started learning at a quicker rate, because a lot of what instruction is they give you it in music paper or staff reading or whatever, and I started to pick it up a lot quicker, picking up finger exercises, learning how to play over chords, tunes, playing in big band, which BIT offers, which I never thought I was going to get a chance to do, because I didn't consider myself good enough. But they give you the opportunity to play with the big band, and that's obviously reading, and since I started developing my reading, I could do such a thing. And I think for all you kids out there, I want to make sure that if you have the opportunity and the time, definitely learn how to read. You're going to advance your playing at an unbelievable rate, because you can just go to a music store, pick something up, sit down and read it and learn it and analyze it. It's almost as, it's almost as important as learning it by ear. Let's talk about my equipment. We'll start with my bass first, which is a Fender Jazz bass. One of the great things about it is that neck size that we have. It fits my hand very well, and some of the stuff that I do requires real big stretches, some things like that or something, and it's really difficult to do it on a precision style neck, so that's why I use the Fender Jazz neck. Plus the pickup setup is perfect for me. I mean, it gives me a lot of low end. You can hear that it just has the full range and a lot of definition because of the two pickups, and that's why I use this pickup setup right here. And I use Bartolini pickups, if you can see those, and they really cut. I mean, it just helps the definition of this bass, to get in that jockle tone. You can definitely hear it through the band. I mean, my band, we have 2 guitar players and a drummer who's real heavy, and I want to be able to cut. I'll use something like that to make sure my musical point gets across, with the music of the band. It also has a detuner. The only other alteration I can think I do to it is the detuner. It's made by Hipshot, and what it does is it knocks my low E string down to a D. So it's really handy. When I didn't have it, I didn't miss it, but when I play a bass, it doesn't have one now. I totally miss it. Another thing I do, but I haven't started on this one yet, but I also use the Hipshot roller string trees, just so I can have a little more leverage, so when I do something like this, I can, it's just for effects or whatever, but I do like it. And for some reason or another, I feel real good about it. Another bass that I wanted to talk about was the reissue bass. It's the 62 reissue Fender Jazz. I haven't installed the D-tuner yet, or the roller string tree, or the Bartolini pickups, but I don't think after playing it, it sounds so great. I probably won't put the different pickups in it. It's stack pot. It's exactly just like the 62 Jazzes. It's a great bass, and eventually when I set it up, it'll be my main bass. Okay, going from my bass, let me add that I do use these D'Angelico strings. I mean, they last longer than most strings that I've used, and I get really great low end out of the high gauge strings that I do use, so I'm really happy with them. But following my chord down, we go down to my compressor sustainer, which you heard me when I clicked on some harmonics. They just enhance the harmonics, anything that's not very loud volume. I mean, if I do that same thing without the compressor, the amp just can't push it enough. It needs to be enhanced, and that's what this compressor sustainer does. So it's great for that. It's also great for just giving me a good aggressive tone. Because it's a sustainer as well, so it adds a little to my sustain. I use it in my solo live, and the only problem I can see with it is I get a little noise with it, because not only do your notes get enhanced, but finger noise. So you get a lot of noise from it, but you just have to learn how to work with it, and it actually cleans me up, cleans my playing up even. Following my chords, we go into my Lee Jackson splitter, which splits my signal into the stereo mode, so I can use two heads in stereo. The great thing about that box is that it enhances the signals, because I'm going to lose some signal with all the chords that I use. And that goes into my SWR bass amp head, which is one of the greatest heads I've ever played through. I've gone through a lot of amps, and this one worked the best. I was continually blowing up amps because on the tone that I require, there's a lot of low end, and I fry amps. They just go nuclear, so I had to get something that could handle that low end, especially when I go to the D-tuner. And these SWR heads were it, and they just have incredible definition. They have a lot of tone variety, tone control. I was really happy with them. And from there, they go into these 410 cabinets, and I know a lot of guys think, well, 410s may not have that much low end, but I think these 10s have more low end than any 18 or 15 I've ever used. They really push, and they got great definition because they're 10s. So I just never get any, when you hear that, you can really hear the note as well as the thump and the low end. You can hear that note quality, and I had a problem with that whenever I bi-amped or whatever, because I use these amps in full range. So I really was amazed by these cabinets. I just didn't think that it could be possible, but it really is. And I think if you ever get a chance to hear them, you will be blown away. The last piece of equipment I have is my Nady wireless. It's a great device for being able to run around on stage, and relatively cheap. It's true diversity, so I think the signal really isn't lost from your bass into it. So I think you should check into that if you have the money. Technique. What is technique? Well, technique to me is being able to express your musical idea in such a way that your audience can understand it. Being it, like, say, conviction, being able to play, let's say, a G major triad, you know, and I had a conviction. I was kind of boom, 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 and you could hear every note. Compared to, say, if I want to, you know, not that there's not many reekers out there, but it can happen. You can just, you know, or just trying to play it fast just for the sake of playing fast. You know, it may not sound as good. You really want to make sure that the notes that you want to get out there are going to really push, you're going to really push the notes that you want through the band while the band's playing. It's also, technique is also consistency, being able to be consistent with the ideas that you're doing, being able to play the notes with consistency, with the same volume, dynamic range, being able to, I mean, when I play that G major triad, it's all, from what I can tell, the same output. I didn't like go, that's what I meant to do. But it's just practicing your technique so you know what you want to do. You can play it on your bass. You know, if you want to have that push on it, you can do it. It's just being very precise with your musical idea. So from there, I also I feel that being able to, you know, when you do have bad technique, you just can't get that groove. Like when you're playing with the band and you got your drummer rocking with you, and you have bad technique, the groove's going to be lost. You're not like a guitar player. Like say Keith Richards, he can play sloppy, and it's the whole attitude that with him, where you don't hear Bill Wyman going off and playing bad notes and just making all sorts of sounds. It doesn't happen. He's got to be tight with Charlie Watts, and that's why the bass playing is such a technique-oriented instrument, I feel, and being able to really rock with that drummer and being able to sit in the pocket and play with his time, working, say, with the metronome even is going to help you be able to play with your drummer better. I recommend these exercises I'm about to show you to work with those with the metronome to get your timing happening. And a good trick is to lower your metronome really low so you can really feel the timing, just where it's going tick, 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 and you're playing, say, G major, and you're going to play it so you just have that space. And you can feel it, and you're going to feel it with your drummer because you don't have that tick going on to guide you. You're going to have to hear, because he's got other things going on. He's got his hi-hats going on, his bass drums going on, and that way it's going to help you when you play these things tight with the metronome. If he's off, then you tell him, hey, get on your metronome, dude, you need some work. So going from there, the technique exercise I'm about to show you helped me to stop being so scale-oriented. Everything I did was scale-oriented. It was always 3-note per string or 4-note per string, never really any interval skips. Interval skips being the intervals being the distance between two notes. And I was always real in half-step, whole-step oriented. And I learned these exercises, and they really helped me to get away from that. And here we go. Let's go to the D. Mr. A string. Let me roll some of that massive low end off. And Mr. E string. Okay, a little hint for doing tuning. To work on your ear, try tuning it by ear, just hitting the strings, hearing that fourth. You can hear like the bridal march. See, so practice listening to that, and then check and see how close you are. Maybe I was a little out. Let me give you that A again. I'm sure it was just my A string because I was whacking on it so hard. So anyways, there's your tuning notes. And let's get on with these exercises. These exercises are what I call interval exercises. Doing this first exercise starting on the second interval, seconds being a major second or a minor second, a whole step or a half step from the note that you're outlining. A major second being 2 frets, whole step, a minor second being half step. So let's roll with the first one. This is going to be out of the key of G major scale. Continue that up to the C. So these aren't out of the, these are in the G major scale. Here's A, and here's B, and here's C. So they're not out notes, they're in that scale. So let's do the second exercise. What you're doing is you're just playing the second note above. So you're just going up in seconds. You're starting on A and you're going to G. There's a chart there that's telling you what notes to hit. So you're going to go A to G, B to A, C to B, D to C, and all the way up. So you're going to be backwards or back down. Let's call it descending. So descending. So I just wanted to hit that third. I need resolution. That's a good exercise. Work it up maybe a little faster. Try it like this. That's the seconds. We use it in a tune. It's a good musical idea too. In a tune that we do called Motorman, out of the first start out in the key of D minor. We do the same seconds interval, but it's out of D minor scale, but it starts on the fifth and it goes up in sequence. And here's my band doing it. Okay, so let's move on to the thirds exercise. What you're doing is it's kind of the same idea. Instead of going up in seconds, you're going up in thirds. So starting on G, you're going to go up to the third. And from A, going up to C. See, there's the sequence. You're just going up in sequence here, and you're going up in sequence here. So. And descending. And do that exercise backwards. Instead of starting on the low note, start on the high, on the third. So go and then go down to the low note. And do it backwards. Pretty good exercise, real valuable. Thirds sound really good. Try them against the major chord. A lot what I do is I'll go, you know, and continue on down to G. I'm sorry, I did dominant. Let me do major. Doing them in thirds, all thirds. And work with thirds. Thirds are really musical sounds, real musical ideas that you can really outline chords with them real well. Let's move to fourths. Fourths is the same idea. You're just climbing up that scale in fourths. So let's do that. And then try that starting on the higher note, going to the lower note. And this sounds really cool when you're doing it, going down on that same version. Almost kind of like an octave sounding thing, but it's fours. So let's move to fifths. Fifths will really help you. It's kind of like thirds. It's a chord tone, so they really sound good in over certain chords. So just work with these. Here we go. Let's start going ascending. Descending. Backwards, I hate to say backwards, or inversion, but starting on the high note, going to the low note. Then reverse that. And there's sixes and sevens left, so let's go to the sixes. So starting on the low note, going up to the sixth. And reverse that same pattern, starting on the high note, going to the low note. Reverse it. And here's our last interval exercise. It's called sevenths. So let's start on the low note and go to the seventh. And reverse that same exercise. Those are my interval exercises. Next, I want to do triplet exercises. And it's the same pattern, same G major scale pattern. But what you're going to do is you're going to go up the scale in triplets, starting on G and going up in 3-note sequences. So, like this. Okay, now descending. And you can reverse these as well. So starting on the high note, say the B on the A string, and going down to G on the E string. So you're going to go. And that's really good. You'll hear triplets in all music. My final technique exercise is doing ascending and descending fours, which means it's kind of like the triplets, but what you're doing is you're ascending and descending in 4-note sequences. So starting on G, you're going to go G, A, B, C, going like this. And then starting on B and going up 4 notes in that same sequence. So it kind of sounds like this. And descending. Those are real helpful. You hear those in rock a lot, and I think they sound pretty good. And these also work in reverse process, starting on the high note and descending down 4 notes. So it's starting, like, say, on C on the A string, going down to G on the E string. And reverse that. Try working with these and try combining the two. Try, say, you're going to start off with an ascending 4s sequence and then go into a triplet and then go into a seconds interval and end with a thirds interval. I mean, just there's different combinations, but it's going to get you out of that rut if you happen to get into that. I know I did. It'll get you out of that playing so scale oriented ideas. It'll break that up. You can break it up. You can play with scale. break it up. You just throw it all together, and you'll see that you're going to have more musical ideas and more phrasing ideas. And that's it for my technique section. Let's move on to my modes section. Modes. All right, here we go. Before I get heavily into modes, I want to discuss three hand positions to play major and minor. And I know I've had students that come in and say, hey, I know how to play a major scale and a minor scale. And I'll say, hey, well, why don't you play a minor scale starting on your second finger instead of your first finger, without having any difficult hand switches or hand position switches, and they can't do it. And you know, I think that it may be a basic thing, but it really is helpful in visualizing major and minor scales for when you're playing tunes or you're reading or something like that. You don't have to switch to that one position that you know. You know a bunch of ways. You can start a major scale with your pinky. You can start it with a third finger. You just don't have to switch abruptly, and it's really time efficient. It really saves you from, you know, doing all these positions and missing maybe a beat or something. So let's start with a major scale, and I know probably a lot of you know how to play it in this position, but I'll do it anyways. Doing it in A major, let's start it. And what I call that is the center position major scale. Playing it where most of your fingers are to the left of the starting note. Play it like this. And it gives you a visualization in case your hand's over here for some reason and you need to do a descending major scale or an arpeggio or whatever. You're right there. You don't have to like go, oh, I better jump over to here because I only know how to play my major scale. Well, you're not wrong. Now you know you can go. Okay, now switching the other way to play the major scale without any difficult hand shifts is starting with most of the fingers to your right and doing it in whole steps, starting on A. Notice no real abrupt hand shifts. 3 ways to play a major, and the same thing goes for minor. Let's start on A and do an A minor, the position probably most of you know, and notice all the fingers are to the right of you. And the same thing goes for when your finger's in the center. What you do is you start like this, and you hit that minor third with your first finger over here. Let me play it clean. And you have one where you can start on your pinky, so let's do that. No hand shifts at all. So now that you know how to visualize your major scales in 3 different positions, and you're going to get total efficiency out of them, and we've gotten that out of the way, let's get into the modes, understanding the major scale better. So looking at this chart that I've drawn up, it's going to help you understand modes more. So starting on the first line, they're going to give you the major scale. Being in key of A major, we have A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. And the major scale, it has the half steps. I mean, the scale is all whole steps except for a half step between the 3 and the 4, which is the C sharp and the D, and a half step between the G sharp and the A, which is the 7 and the 1. And as we get into this, the modes, like going to the next mode, Dorian mode, it's the major scale, but it starts on a different degree. So instead of starting on A, the Dorian, which is the next in line, starts on B. It's the same scale. It just happens to start on B and goes from B to the octave B. So looking at it, if we had A major, the Dorian mode starts on B and goes to B. The next mode is Phrygian. It starts on the 3rd degree. None of the notes have changed. It just starts on C sharp and goes up to C sharp. So here we go. Now we have the Lydian, which starts on the 4th degree of the major scale and goes from D to D. The notes haven't changed. It's all falls in the key of A major. So here we go. That was Lydian. Now we're going to mixed Lydian, which starts on the 5th degree of the A major scale, starting on D. Here we go. Volume, please. The next is Aeolian, which is natural minor. And that starts on the 6th degree. So starting there, here we go. The final mode is the Locrian mode, and that obviously starts on the 7th note, because there's 7 notes in the major scale, the octave being on top. But starting on the 7th degree, let's play that. And here we are back at major. That's basically modes. And if you notice that what we've discovered is that A major has a relative minor, so starting on F sharp minor. And you can hear that when you play the Locrian, you want to go to that A major. But it's just relative major and minor. So now you can understand how majors and minors work together and how you can almost consider one and the same. The next thing I wanted to show was doing those modes, but doing them in 3-note per string exercises. This is something that I use. It helped me visualize my keys immensely. I can't get lost. When you get these down, you can't get lost on your neck. You just can't, because you know your patterns. You know them like that. There's just no way you can play a bad note when you get these patterns down. And 3-note per string being like one of the easiest scale sequences you can play. So what we're going to do, instead of starting on A major, so I can go from the low part of the neck to the high part of the neck, I'm going to start on the relative minor, which is F sharp minor. So going through these 3-note per string exercises, and you'll see the notes come along the bottom, so you can follow along with me. So here we go. Note per string all the way up. Well, there's minor, and then it just continues. It helps you visualize. Also, check it out. You're almost playing that whole major scale, because once you get to that 3rd degree of the F sharp minor, remember that pattern I showed you, how to visualize the major pattern as well? There it is. It's just helping you visualize. It's all going to start locking in. The next one starts thinking of as being Locrian. Here we go. 3-note per string exercise. The next one's major. Notice how this major starts out of one of those major positions that I showed you how to play earlier, being it like this, but just continuing it. Easy enough. So let's move on to the Dorian. Pretty good, huh? So one thing I wanted you to notice is there's that minor pattern that I showed you, because since A major, F sharp minor, here's F sharp. Here's how I showed you how to play in that position. You can just start visualizing more. You say, wow, if I'm in the key of F sharp minor, you can visualize. You just can't play bad notes. Going on, we're going up to the Phrygian. So here we go. now we're going to go up to the Lydian. And starting on D on the E string, going up. Notice now, as I'm going to show again, there's major. Easy enough. I mean, believe me, as you get more familiar with this and transcribe into different keys instead of just doing A major, F sharp minor, move to G major, E minor, move to all of them. Know your neck. Know your neck. I mean, that way, I mean, it's going to help your reading, your chord chart reading, all styles of your playing, all aspects of your playing. So moving along, let's go to the Mixolydian. So now that I just showed you the Mixolydian, you're back to the octave doing the same pattern that you opened up with, an octave higher. I'm going to show you right now a different way to play, say, a minor scale instead of just doing it in the natural fashion, say like in D minor. What we can do is do it in the two-handed method. First, I'm going to start off with something that Paul, my old guitar player, showed me. What you do is, it's the basic two-handed pattern that Paul had shown me that he had learned from another bass player, Billy Sheehan. So starting on that, what you do is you fret down on your right hand, you fret off, and you got the new note, and then what you're going to do is you're going to fret with your left hand, and then you're going to fret with your right hand again. Then pull off, and then pull off. So going. So right hand, pull off, fret, right hand, pull off, pull off. So practice that pattern until you get it so, until you can get it fairly clean and fairly smooth. And then what you can do is incorporate it into scale ideas. Climbing up in scales is a little different. What you'll do is you'll fret, pull off, fret, pull off, and then you're going to fret that note you just fretted with your right hand, fret it again, and at the same time move your left hand to the second note of the scale. So what you get is, and it's as you get it to going up the scale, so here being the scale notes being, doing it in that pattern. That's D minor right there, so doing it a little faster. Let me do it a little cleaner. And that's D minor, going up in the two-handed pattern. And when you get it really fast, it has a real cool sound to it, real cool, as people always tell me whenever I do it, they always go, it sounds like a bumblebee, because your notes are going so fast, you know, when you're doing. So that's one pattern of the two-handed technique. Another thing that I do with it is, like, say we're in the key of F sharp minor, and what you're going to do is remember your one way to visualize a minor scale, and then there's the octave. What you're going to do is you're going to fret the octave with that, and then you're going to be on that note on the 7th degree. Then you're going to fret it again, go to the 6th, fret again to the 5th, change strings. That's the exercise, so let's just check it out. And you get it down fast. I mean, you can incorporate a whole two-handed thing. Say you're doing a scale pattern and then go down in that sequence. This other two-handed exercise is something that we incorporated in one of our tunes. And what you're going to do is start on F sharp, which is your key, which is F sharp minor, and you're going to do that same pattern that I showed you earlier. But what you're going to do is you're going to only do it once, starting on F sharp, hitting the 2 and the 3 in that pattern, and you're going to jump strings. So you're going to go, and then the 4 and the 5 and the 6, and then you're going to jump down a whole step and fret it. You're still in the key of F sharp minor, and then you're going to jump down another whole step, staying in the key of F sharp minor, and then jump up to this pattern, because if you can see, so we're not getting out of key at all. So quickly, I mean, how I do it in the tune. So that's how I do it. But it's all in the key of F sharp minor, and there's nothing different there. I've shown you the beginning patterns. It's just jumping strings. Okay, let's do some thumbing. I wanted to show thumbing, even though I don't do it in my band. I love to do it when I play with other players, or even with my own band, and they want to get down and get funky. I'll work on my thumbing, and I've always kept it up. So let's roll along. The first exercise is something that, just to get your right hand familiar with going back and forth between the thumb and the first finger. So starting on C and going to the octave, it's going to be all octaves. Starting on C, we're going to go from C to A sharp to B, back to C. And it's really basic. Check it out. And one thing you want to do is work this into your metronome workouts and getting it really clean, really tight. You don't want any other string noise. You just want, try playing it in staccato. And just keep working it in. That's going to start getting your right hand familiar. You know, your left hand should be used to doing octaves. I'm sure most of you do them. And the next thing I want to do is maybe work a little more on the right hand. Try doing thumbing with the slap on top and doing 2 notes on the low one. So going. So you're going to do the same exercise going. You know, and then you go. And what you're going to do is, just like I just did at the very end of that, I just started mixing them. I started mixing two low strings and one high one, or alternating. You just do. Sorry about my timing. I don't have a metronome cooking around here, but just trying to think of more ideas to show you. Another thing I like to do is, I'll go kind of, I learned it from my drummer. My drummer was always going boom, 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 you know, with the bass drums and a cymbal. And so I started doing, and it's just a lot of thumbing, and then just doing the 2 quick ones before they pop up. Another thing is, try doing it, working it with open strings. So incorporating with open strings, what you'll do is you'll hit the open A, fret the B, hit the B, and pop. So you're gonna go. And you can even get it fast. I get asked a lot about my right hand and left hand technique, how I got clean and pretty quick with my right hand. And what I wanted to go into is let you know a little bit about how I ended up the way I do play. When I first started playing with Racer X, I used to play like Stanley Clarke, because I remember seeing videos or albums of him, and he'd be playing way up here, you know, getting that Stanley Clarke. You know, he'd get that real heavy attack up here. And what happened was, as I was doing these albums with, or the first album that I did with Racer X, I played up here and I noticed there was a lot of string noise that I didn't particularly care for. So what happened was I said, well, I've been listening to Jocko a lot and maybe not so much Stanley anymore. So I switched to playing back here, which gives you a little bit. You can really hear the notes, and it doesn't have so much. When I record way back at the bridge. I don't want to get that string noise that I would get here. You know, I get it, here, and when I moved it back, it cleans up. So, that's a good way to analyze which you would rather do. I mean, this Stanley Clarke sounds great up here if you can control it, and I felt the need to move it back to here. And if you play with the pick, I mean, it's some of the greatest players. Andy West, he's probably the best pick player I've heard, or Bobby Vega, and they play great bass with the pick. So don't let anybody tell you, if you're a pick player, don't let anybody tell you that the bass should be played with your fingers. There's things that you can do with the pick that you can't do with your fingers. So just keep that in mind. And I think in overall, it's best if you can do all of it. If you can do thumbing, you can do play back here, play up here, play with the pick. It's going to help you out, and people are going to appreciate it, and you're going to be called on more to do more gigs. All right, I hope that some of the things I showed you on my video will help you become a better bass player. I know that everything that I showed you really opened up my playing. And remember to practice everything with the metronome. It has to become your best friend. And I guess I will see you on tour backstage.
twirling, the squirrling antics of Mr. John Alderete on the bass guitar.